Welcome back to DAM for Media and Entertainment, part of DAM Industry Week. I'll hand back to our chair for today, Graham Allan, the Managing Director of Deloitte Consulting. Graham, over to you.
Well, thank you very much. Welcome to what is our final main stage session of the day. We have a splendid closing act. As we think about everything we've heard here today, there's plenty of excitement still ahead for us in the DAM world. And one of the lessons we might take away is how important it is to be ready for that excitement, ready for that change. And I'm joined here by Mike Palmer, Senior Director for Media Management at Sinclair Broadcast Group. And he has an awesome story to share about why being ready really matters. Mike, welcome. And maybe start by setting the scene. What are the different dimensions of your business and the role that content management plays, and especially the scale of it all?
So Sinclair Broadcasting is one of the largest broadcasters in the U.S. We have more than 200 channels across North America that air through about 65 or so physical sites that originate this content. The channels range from stations that just take syndicated content or network programming to stations that produce news. Then we also have our 16 regional sports networks as well. All of that is content coming in that has to air, but most importantly, across all those channels, we have commercials. And commercials are constantly coming in and have to be processed and then made available for playback. So across those channels, we have about 7,000 media files a day coming in. That's about 200,000 files a month in a combination of commercials and syndicated content. And per year, that ends up to be about 2.5 million files, or about 5 petabytes of content at the bit rate that we use.
So that's quite a lot. You have a lot of content coming through your world. Now, you've been on a journey of transformation for the content management. Maybe share a little bit of the vision you've been building towards.
Sure. The old way of doing things was to ingest content at each one of those 65 physical locations. So commercials would be sent to those sites, either over satellite or over the internet, received as files. They then had to be checked for timing and top and tail on those so that you get rid of unwanted black and they're ready to air. Check the audio and things like that. Syndicated content, the same thing. We have to know where the commercials land so the timings are correct. And we had to do that at each of those 65 plus different sites. Even if that car ad was a national ad that aired across the entire footprint of all of our properties, it was still received at 65 different sites with 65 different copies, and eventually as many as 200 additional copies that had to be made of that. So it was not an overly efficient process. And our journey was to take that and consolidate that into a central ingest and prep, as we're calling it, so that it would be received in the cloud once. And if that commercial or syndicated program aired on multiple stations, or channels, it would be processed once so we can get rid of the duplication.
And I think you were even weaving some sophistication into this with the notion of things like promos, where there would be common elements, sort of managed in a common way, and then localized elements that could be local just for each market or each station.
Right. Promos are something that people see but don't really understand the complexity behind creating those. So if there's a talk show that airs in 30 different markets that we have, then for each episode that plays, we have a coming up tomorrow, coming up today, coming up tonight version of the promo. And those have to be created programmatically for each one of the stations that's airing that content. So we have the voice that says coming up tonight on call letters, okay, and has the station graphics that drop in so that people know where to look for it. There are lots of those. There's 30,000 of those a month that we create. And we needed to streamline the production and distribution of those as well.
Right, and did folks heard that number, 30,000 a month? That's a pretty non-trivial volume of content to be localized. Okay, so you were on this journey of transformation, and then something happened.
Well, we were really happy. I think it was on October 10th that our POC had been completed successfully. So we had our, as we're calling it, the cloud media pipeline was there. We had dual delivery from our distributors who were delivering commercials and syndicated content in parallel, not only to the 65 locations, but also to our little cloud POC that was processing all that content. It wasn't doing it at scale. We were receiving one copy and we were producing one copy out here, but we proved everything through that pipe, and we were happy with it. And then on October 14th or 15th, things changed. We had a cybersecurity event that essentially the effect of it was to seriously impact our ability to receive this content at each of those 65 locations and put it on the air. So this is really serious. This is not just making sure that we're playing the episode in Simpsons that you expect to see tonight, but it's also making sure we have commercials around that. Okay, if the commercials stop moving through the enterprise stops making money. And our ability to receive the commercials and process them and put them on air was seriously impacted at more than 85% of our sites. So we had to do something very quickly. So we said, well, gosh, we've got this POC up here that seems to have been working well. The stuff here on the ground is seriously not working well. Let's just scale the POC up and go from this big to across the entire enterprise and see what happens. And we did that pretty much immediately. And within a day or two, we were receiving all that content in the cloud and then making it available to our stations so they could receive it and then remain on the air and making money.
And how did you go about sort of the people and process change for that? Because a transformation program usually has a fairly majestic time scale for the people and process change.
So, if you're flying along in an airplane and the wings fall off the airplane, everybody thinks the parachute they have on their back is the best thing ever. So they were more than happy to go through this transformation literally overnight. And what was interesting about this was we really learned very quickly what is necessary and what is not absolutely necessary. Okay. Getting the content processed and through was absolutely necessary, and making it available to the station so that they could continue to air it. There were some other features that we had thought were necessary. We had said that they were necessary. They were certainly nice to have, but we learned that they weren't absolutely necessary to stay on the air. Now, this is not to say anybody should stay at minimum functionality because you have minimum efficiency at that point. So there are other things that you want to put into a sophisticated system that will increase your efficiency. But if you're looking at the minimum functionality, what do I need to stay on the air and keep making money? That was a completely different set than we thought it was going into that event.
How did that sort of shape the relationship with the technology providers? Because there's sort of a number of different, providers of technology, product and service who had been on this path of, relatively majestic transformation and sort of found themselves really in the throes of production on air activity.
We called two of our close partners up that were, one of them was working in the POC with us, was a core portion of the POC, and said, we need to turn this up to full scale overnight. And they were very good. They dropped everything and made that happen for us. There was another vendor who we'd been using for a separate process that wasn't core to the pipeline, but they essentially provided a link from the media pipeline to the ground for people to download the content. We hadn't anticipated using them, but we saw that we could use them. And we called it and said, this thing over here that, it's you normally scale for a work group of 30. They scale up to larger scale than that, but the one feature that we were looking at was typical for a work group of 30. We said we'd like to take that and just throw our news users into it. And they said, well, how many do you expect? And we said 3,000. So we took a feature that they had that normally worked for about 30 people and went 2 orders of magnitude larger than that. Now that company does handle large organizations, but generally through multiple of these modules. We wanted to do it in just one to make it simple for people. And what was interesting about it was a social experiment as well, because we put our news folks into this mix and said, use this to trade your content between stations. Okay, we're going to make it very level playing field. Everybody has the same rights to do everything, including delete things or rename things and move things. And anybody can add anybody else as long as they have a Sinclair email address. And within 2 or 3 days, we had 3,000 users in that platform, and everybody was in there and was very respectful of everybody else. And we would have, if we were sitting in a conference room and whiteboarding this out with workflow, we would have said, there's no way this will work. Okay, we would never do this because content will go missing, and that would be a bad thing. But those users walked into it, and again, because the wings had fallen off the plane, they were very happy to get that parachute, and they also saw the flexibility of that particular product. It's like a Swiss Army knife for them, and they found new ways of applying it. Now, they could go and delete other people's stuff, and they could move it. Okay, the saving grace on that was that if they deleted something, it just went to the trash. Okay, we could go back and get it from the trash.
Get it.
That only happened once. And it was 5,000 files. And somebody said, this has gone missing. And, I picked my heart up off the floor and said, it's in the trash. Went, grabbed the trash and put it back, and everything was fine. And we could see what everybody was doing. So it was very obvious the name of the user who did that. So we had a little chat, and that never happened again.
Well, I asked the question about, sort of technology partners, because it is often a subject of conversation at these conferences, these events, how important it is for technology partners and content management to be partners, that we're never just buying a product that you run like the install DVD and then only ever call the 800 number, if something truly breaks, that it really is kind of a partnership. It's an ongoing partnership. And I think you tell a story here of how critical that is, but how valuable it is to have that sense of partnership, even from early stages in POC, that it's part of your ultimate success story here.
Right. And it's important for the partners to understand our vision as well, because whenever the cyber event happened and we called them up and said, we're going to scale now, we didn't have to explain to them what our vision was. They knew what the vision was. We didn't have to, tell them how to put one foot in front of the other. They simply knew that they needed to walk to this place in the distance where we were going. And we said, now we're going to run instead of walk. Mm-hmm. and they did. And if we hadn't have had good partners with that, then we certainly would not have been able to make that overnight transition.
How would you recommend our audience approach, like helping or incenting technology partners to have that vision, understand that vision? Because it's often not just as simple as telling them, because everybody in the content world has a little bit different of a world of a content set, of content workflows, of metadata. How would you recommend people approach that relationship?
I think we've had the greatest success in working with partners who immediately picked up on where we were going strategically. Okay, we're going over here to the top of this mountain, over here. Okay, and this is what it looks like, and we're not there yet, but this is where we want to go. Partners that understand that can then figure out where to put their feet to do the march or the run to where you're going on the mountain. If you find yourself in a discussion with a vendor and the conversation is all about where to put their feet, our experience hasn't been as good with that type of relationship. If we're talking about what features we need, in the next release, and that's the only discussion that we're having, then that may not be where you need to be with a strategic relationship with the partner. They should understand where you're going and come to you and say, look, this is how we've adjusted the roadmap. these are the things on our roadmap already that you'll be interested in, and coming up 1, 2, 3, 4 release cycles in 1 or 2 years from now. And I think that's very important, that you have that strategic relationship and not get bogged down in talking about where one foot goes in front of the other.
Right. And then exactly what you just described is an ongoing thing. That's not a one-time conversation. That's an ongoing.
Absolutely.
Thing.
Absolutely.
Now, how would you say this experience has shaped now your trajectory? You know, you were on this journey with a trajectory to the top of that mountain. You know, how has this, you know, shaped or evolved that trajectory?
I think we are spending more time and effort looking at simple tools that can be a Swiss Army knife. Okay, and less emphasis is being placed on a one tool that might do everything. Because as we went through this, you know, overnight transformation, there wasn't one system that was going to get us back. It was going to be multiple systems, and those multiple systems had to talk to each other. And what really made this work was how easily the systems we worked with were able to integrate with each other, integrate the workflow, integrate the media flow. If I'm afraid that if we had been working with a monolithic system, then we wouldn't have had any, we wouldn't have had as much control as we did, and we would have been very much beholden to one company's development roadmap and how much effort they were going to put into helping us. With multiple tools and Swiss Army knives, we were able to essentially create something that was going to work for us without getting into a lot of development. It was simply integration work.
Would you say it's almost part of the strategy now to sort of think in that Swiss Army knife mindset?
It is, and this one tool that we used for file sharing and move things from cloud to ground, it was so quickly adopted by our news users that as we started to recover and bring systems back online, they came to me and they were worried that this tool was now going to go away. They said, please don't make this go away. They said, if there's any silver lining to this bad event, and by the way, the bad event, you know, lasted for 3 or 4 months before we were completely recovered. If they said, if there's one silver lining to this, it's the fact that you brought this tool into our workflow and we can use it to do things ourselves, and we don't have to go to the IT department or somewhere else to, you know, request something be built or something to be configured for them. And it pointed out to us that in some cases, less is more, right? They were able to do more with a little Swiss Army knife than they potentially could with a large monolithic system.
That sounds then that it's also changed your approach, maybe even your psychology of adoption for the transformation journey.
Yes, it certainly showed us that user participation and buy-in was a good thing. We certainly don't want to, you know, intentionally saw the wings off the plane just to get people to adopt our new workflows. And so that our changes necessarily had to move on from that point. But providing users something they genuinely like and can use leads to greater and deeper adoption.
Mm-hmm. Maybe just a picture of somebody standing on the wing with a saw would be enough to, you know, present transformation. And obviously, none of us can practice for or anticipate every eventuality. I mean, this is not, you know, this is not a situation you're practiced for. But you were thinking, you were on a trajectory that was positioning you for change that you were able to adopt very, very quickly. What would you encourage your audience to think about in being prepared and being ready, and maybe not necessarily thinking about a journey as only about the destination that might be like weeks or months or years away?
For us, we've been really focused on what value can we bring most quickly to the enterprise, and where can we get that greatest bang. Now we'll go back and we will do some more elegant refinements to things, but those will be incremental. But it's really looking at what is practical and then doing the what ifs. You know, what if this happens? How will we respond to it? And I'll throw one more thing in here, just as we thought we were cruising along in recovery. In one of the areas that we had, somebody called me up on a Saturday night and said, "It's all gone." And I said, "What's all gone?"
What's
and
all gone?
they said, "Everything is gone." What do you mean everything is gone? We're looking in the cloud storage location where this stuff is supposed to be, and there's supposed to be, 500,000 files here, and they're gone. And it's okay, let me log in and take a look at this. And what we found was that there had been a problem with one of our vendors' processes. All our vendors are great. I'm not bad-mouthing any of our vendors. They had a problem, and it moved everything to the trash. Okay. So it made it not available to the user interface and the users. And for all intents and purposes to the users, it looked like everything had been deleted. That was certainly a heart-stopping moment. But again, we looked at it and said, okay, all we have to do now is bring this back and put it back. Now, the vendor is the one that told us what we needed to do ahead of time to protect ourselves from that awful risk. Okay. To mitigate that risk, you need to do this, and this in the architecture. And we had done that. And so recovering it was as simple as moving it back. Now, we work with great vendors, big names in the industry. If anybody is going to minimize our risk, it is going to be these big names, okay? But bad things still happen, okay? Even when you're working with leaders in the industry. And so you need to listen to them and also listen to your own best advice and put protective and mitigating measures in place so that, you say, well, what if somebody goes in and accidentally deletes everything? How do I get it back? If this process happens to go away, what is my recovery from that? And just make sure you're building those into your architecture.
Yeah, which also reinforces your earlier point about the vendors and partners understanding what you want out of their tools and products and why. Actually, not just what, but why.
Right.
So they can respond to situations like that. Well, maybe also a broader question: what having gone through this, including having being able to even accelerate some aspects of your transformation through this, what lessons would you encourage our audience to take away in planning a content management program that involves sort of multiple layers, multiple steps of transformation?
Don't live in an ivory tower. Go and talk to the users, because things that we might believe that are very valuable from an academic or business perspective, strictly business perspective, may not be the things that a user would say would be on their list of minimum requirements. And just really understand what those users are doing and talk to them, incrementally talk to them, saying, this is what we're planning, come and look at this. Tell us what we've done right and what we've done wrong, and really make sure you maintain a continuous loop in that process. It's much easier to make and recover from a problem in a POC than it is to recover from a problem at scale.
Yes. Yes, very, very true words. And any other parting thoughts? Any other final thoughts?
No.
For our audience?
The wings fell off the plane, but the parachute works. And I think that even if you don't plan that, you should be asking yourself, what do we do in that situation? Because you never know when you're going to find yourself in that situation.
This is a wonderful story. Obviously in part because it has a happy ending, and you're able to tell the story of pivoting really rather elegantly from the sort of POC and the more majestic path to a real production deployment. But I think it does also speak to that point of vendor relationship and partner relationship and what it means to have partners along the way that can deliver for you.
It's not over yet, Graham. As you know, maybe the ending of season 1. But we have a call every Thursday, and there's always a new episode.
Yes, but we trust that this is that it is a series that will end at some point. This is not the news. This is a dramedy that will end at some point.
Yes.
And we are unfortunately at the end of our time slot here. Mike, thank you so much. Thank you for taking the time to share this amazing story with us and with our audience.
Thank you.
And how can it be that we are out of time? We're out of time for the day. This does conclude our formal presentations and panels for the day. And clearly, DAM is just as vibrant a discipline for media and entertainment today as it has been for years. And it's fantastic to see innovation and futurism for our content management. They show no signs of slowing down. We hope all of you have enjoyed this short but lively expedition through it all today. Now, if you missed anything, or if you want to replay some parts that you really enjoyed, you'll find session recordings on the agenda tab. Just scroll down and you'll be able to replay any of today's sessions. An enormous thank you to our amazing speakers throughout the day, our sponsors and exhibitors, and to the hardworking Henry Stewart production team, largely behind the scenes, who made all of this possible. And of course, to all of you for carving out precious time to tune in. Tomorrow, Industry Week turns to DAM for Education, with expert speakers from Notre Dame, University of Southern California, University of Central Arkansas, and many more. You are all very welcome to join any and all of those sessions, and indeed any other sessions throughout the week. Now, though, join us over in the Lounge tab to continue the conversation with your friends and colleagues, and raise a glass, sadly just virtually for now, but raise a glass to a great event at our online after party. We'll see you there. Thank you very much.